corrections
I did say that, but in truth, no, I won't.
Okay, I was a little confused.
Well, what I meant by that is if you recall before, the quizzes were PowerPoints and you didn't know what the questions were. Well, now you do, so there's really no need for me to do that. I was like, oh yeah. But to answer your question, they're due a week after I give them to you. So I gave them to you Tuesday. They're due a week from Tuesday. That would be fine, yeah. If you just want to do it on the same page, that's fine also. Okay. Turn in folder, if you please. Just make sure they all go to the same one. I don't have them labeled yet. Although I think there might be, no, actually none of those ones are labeled. So just, as long as they're all in the same one, that's all that really matters. 3 makes 6, makes 9, 11 makes 6. Oh, because I have 2. Hey. Oh, that's why everything's confusing. Okay, so I had you guys do some reading for me yesterday. And, just like always, you guys are looking for points today. Yeah.
Alright, so I have a question. Alright, so on Tuesday, Wednesday, there's work. Okay. So do you need to know the words that are under the day that we're going to be on?
Yeah, so yesterday we covered the words that obviously you guys didn't have the reading for. So I gave it to you. And then, today we've got some words. So that's it. Thursday doesn't have any words. What? Right. Okie doke.
I wish you made it on Wednesday just so it's like go together. No words Wednesday.
No words Wednesday? Oh well. Sometimes you can't have the nice things in life.
So now it's just no words Thursday.
Hey, words Thursday. I don't know. Words Thursday. There's something there.
It's just like doesn't roll off the tongue.
Not as well, no. Oh well. Chapter 2, section 3. So we've got these lists of words and things like that. So hopefully you guys know those, because again we're going to put them on the old board here. So to start off, so I'm at random. This is probably the easiest question, so sorry, whoever gets a good job. Miss Wright, where is the Mughal dynasty? Where are we talking about? What? The Mughal dynasty, the Mughal Empire.
Fast. No wait. Not fast.
Okay. Yes. Not Persia. I'm going to go randomly here. Hughes. What's that? I can't hear you, sorry. It's not technically Middle East either. Garcia. Nobody? Alright, yes, over here.
India.
It's India, yes it is. Now why isn't that the Middle East? Well, basically when we look at the geography of Asia, India is sort of its own continent in a way. We call it a subcontinent because, one, it's on a different tectonic plate, and two, it's such a big place. I mean, seriously, look it up on the map right there. It might not look like it's that much bigger than, say, like anything else, but, if you actually compare it to, say, like, the United States, it's like literally a quarter of the United States. So it's a pretty big place. The Mughal Empire. First of all, it's kind of a funny name, Mughal. I mean, what's that all about? Mughal? Yeah, Mughal Empire. It actually comes from Mongol, the Mongol Empire. So we're talking about Mongols and also Turks. So really, this is a Turkish empire that is going to be in India, okay? So that already gives us some kind of the interesting bits to it. What's the first Turkish empire or empires in? Actually, that's not even really true. I'm not going to ask it that way. Never mind. Moving on. So our first point of interest is the Delhi Sultanate. It's going to be a loose empire of Turkish warlords, acting very similar to what we saw with Osman in his group. These, not so much Ghazi, but you have one commander in charge of the war bands, and they are going to set up their own little empires. Who is it that ends up kind of consolidating some of these? It doesn't really say put an end to the Delhi Sultanate, but does kind of create one of the largest empires, the largest chunk. Does anybody know the answer to that question? Yes.
It's
Who?
like
Not Ismail. No. That's the Safavids. Yes, ma'am.
Was it Babur?
It wasn't Babur. He will put together a bigger empire. We'll talk about him. But this is actually a guy we've heard of before. He actually defeated an Ottoman Sultan and led him away in chains. Yeah. Timur, yeah. Timur the Lame. Remember that guy? The guy who... where'd you go? There we are. Guy ends up defeating Bayezid and leads him away in chains. Same guy. He ends up smashing Delhi and ends up more or less carving up a big chunk of this into his own empire, which his son Shahrukh is later going to rule. And the reason I mention this is Babur, the guy who really kind of begins the Mughal period, is actually a direct descendant of Timur as well as Genghis Khan. So he has kind of this street cred, if you will, with these Turkish tribes. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you say that the Timur the Lame guy, he like
Yeah, he was one of these warlords. He doesn't like conquer at all, but he does add a bunch of these empires to his own throne. Now, one of the things you'll notice pretty quickly with this Turkish period is India is a favored target of these Mongol peoples. And the reason largely has to do with the fact that India is a very rich agricultural area. There's also a significant number of gold coming through this area. So, it's kind of like, robbing a bank in a lot of ways, It's, you make a lot of money doing it. So you find that, people are always wanting to conquer India. China as well. Anyways, so Babur, as we've established, ends up kind of beginning the Mughal period. He actually ends up conquering a large portion of the northern parts of India. I say he's a brilliant general in here. What did he do that was kind of like a great success victory? What happened to this battle that's mentioned in your textbook that made it kind of interesting? Yeah.
he like felt like the army and swept down India and like down
Yeah, we said that. What was the battle like? What was significant? Like, why would we say that he was a good general? Yeah.
Wasn't he the guy who had like 12,000 troops that defeated like 100?
Yeah, he did 100,000 with 12,000. That's crazy. Go nuts. Yeah. I mean, seriously, that's I mean, literally, you're almost like, all right, everyone here has got to defeat 10 people just for us to stay even, And contrary to what we see in movies and video games, you're not having guys out there just like slaying hundreds of people, hundreds of dudes. That just didn't happen. So I mean, it's just kind of crazy going on. As I said. But anyway, so he is able to conquer parts of northern India and begin this. What happens after him? What happens under his son's reign? I'm going to go with somebody else randomly. Wisconsin. Dunham. Humphrey? He did. He was not a very good ruler. As we've seen. It doesn't matter. We only care about winners here. That's not really true. But in this particular case, it's, he really is kind of insignificant for that reason. What about the next guy? What does he do? Yeah.
It's sick, right? So I'm gonna be like, right, he's a really good fighter.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's first of all look at a picture of Babber here. Actually, that's not him at all. How you guys know him? What's his name? Yeah.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, I don't know his name, but I just watched
It's Babar. Yeah. That's actually named after him kind of loosely. You know, a conqueror, elephant king. See the resemblance. Anyway, but again, you have this decidedly Turkish influence in India at this time. So, again, you kind of see this in this picture. Anyways, Akbar. Akbar is the next guy. Arguably, he's the best of the various rulers of the Mughal dynasty we're going to talk about. He does a lot of things that's kind of cool. First of all, he's going to reform the army. As we see up here, he is going to use artillery. The same sort of thing we saw with the Ottomans, and it's going to do it to great effect. However, I also say here that he appoints old enemies in high positions. Who am I talking about here? Who is these enemies that I've mentioned? Somebody who hasn't answered yes. Ronaldo. Miss Hopkins. Anybody know who's the enemies he appoints? Yes.
I don't know if it was the Rajputs.
Rajputs. Yes, yes. Yeah, you did totally. Rajputs. Can someone tell me who were the Rajputs? Rajputs. One of your words. Rajputs. All right. So the Rajputs are a tribe that mostly is in the north, and they gave his grandfather quite a bit of trouble. They sort of have this very strong warrior tradition, both in terms of martial arts and in other weapons training. And you could, like, even when you feed them, they still go away. So one of the things that he does that's pretty significant is instead of keeping them as enemies, he invites them to be officers in his army and train as men. So instead of having a weakness, a liability, he turns them into an asset. And that's a very strong maneuver because it gives him not only a more powerful army, but also probably arguably the lower part that takes away somebody who would rebel against him. He's very liberal in terms of religion. He ends up promoting these individuals who are not Muslims into his government. He also, gets rid of the tax that's put on non-Muslims. Now, let me ask you this question. What was the number one faith practice in India? Not Islam. Yes, ma'am. No, yeah, Islam. A Muslim is a practitioner of Islam. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, great. I can see why you would say that, but no. It is one of the founding religions in India, but it's not one of the main ones. Or you're into what do you guys want to end? Yes, ma'am. Hinduism. Yes, what? So, Hinduism, the vast majority of people in India are Hindu, with the next group being in between Muslims. They're probably slightly more Buddhist, actually, of the two main vehicles. And then you have Muslims. I guess well, back then it's Muslims, but the splitting of Pakistan. Anyways, it's irrelevant. So, mostly people who are not Muslims. So that's a huge amount of taxes that you're getting rid of. So as a nation, we need taxes. How are we going to do that? Well, we reform the taxes. And actually, there's a Hindu economist who comes up with this idea of doing a graduated tax rate. It's easier and cheaper on the peasants. This means that with actually having less to pay, some of the peasants who were tax dodging start actually paying their taxes. And basically it makes it easier to figure out who's paid and who is not. So this means that we're going to streamline tax collection, and even though we're technically charging people less, we're making more money. He also more or less does away with true feudalism. Yeah?
I think that's like seeing people, like if they pay taxes or not.
Well, frequently it's whether or not you say you paid the taxes. There are ways of avoiding taxes and saying usually you can't just say you didn't make any money, because clearly they can look at what you spent in your bank account, what have you, and what you have not, what you burned. But people tend to avoid taxes by saying they made less than they actually did and things like that. But this is like with modern technology. Back then, I mean, basically the way you collect taxes, you had to do as a tax collector, walk from door to door and say, all right, time to pay your taxes. So, yeah.
Okay, so is this person, is he the son, but the VAUR, is that his grandson?
Yep. Akbar the Great. You'll find that the Great is often a title attributed to various rulers. Like Russia had like two of them within a period of like 2 or 3 czars. So it's like, can't we think of like a more original title? Which is why actually I was kind of pleased it was talking about one of the first conquerors in India, this Turkish, or not really a Turk, but kind of Central Asian warlord, Mahmud of the Ghaznavids. And I always liked his title because it was Hammer of the Infidels. I mean, that's got to be an interesting way of getting into clubs. What's your name? Hammer of the Infidels. Oh, welcome aboard. Yeah. So, I don't know. Those neat titles, I guess. I mean by that, though, in feudalism, the way it works is you are given land for your service, and that is hereditary, basically. Your children can inherit your lands. Not under Akbar. Under Akbar, once you die, that land then goes back into his hands and he can give it to somebody else. Now this has some positives and some negatives. The positive of that is that you can give it to somebody who is the most competent. Like you're not just sticking a family, you have somebody who's incompetent with land and mismanage it. The problem with that, though, is if they're just going to take it away from you when you die, what's the incentive to make it grow and do really, really well? You're not passing on to your children, so who cares? So basically, it's kind of hit or miss on this particular thing. But it's interesting because whereas most of the world is kind of these feudal kingdoms, it is not. Not really. That's Akbar. Different Akbar. That's Akbar. What do you notice on his hand there? It's not a pigeon, it is a bird. Look at its feet. Yeah, it's a falcon. Hunting was always a big deal with, well, let me do both birds of prey, so it makes sense. It looks kind of like a really poorly drawn one, but hey, whatever. I think this is it's a print, so. But, what's that?
I said when I was, because I was doing something with my notes, I said when I first looked up at it, I thought it was a banana.
Oh, it's a banana.
It's a hunting banana. Go! But the sport of hawking was a very popular pastime among Turks and Mongols. Basically, you get these falcon. So basically, take these birds of prey and go hunting with them. There's even a scene of him as a child that was done hawking with these people, and it was just like this national pastime. Besides, I mean, you can't really look more awesome than like standing there in your fine robes with a hawk. It's that what's that one commercial? It's like, with my tax return, I got this eagle. Oh, I should have got an eagle. A falcon, that's what it was. Yeah. So after Akbar, things kind of slowly but surely start to fall apart. One person of interest is Nur Jahan. The reason is, in the Middle East, we often think of men running everything. The fact is that there were several women who managed to take control. Now, they couldn't rule in their own name, so they did it through either their husbands or sons, but they really did this stuff pretty regularly. Actually, Suleiman the Magnificent, his wife, his principal wife, whose name was Roxanne, and seriously, Roxanne, you don't need to put on the red light. Anyway, she ended up basically having an inordinate amount of control in his government. And Nur Jahan basically ruled. Like, if you look at Jahangir, however you say it, he basically wasn't really interested in ruling. He just would rather hawk and go hang out with his friends. Like, all right, honey, that sounds good. Basically, just hangs out in this man cave, and she controlled everything. And she intended basically to continue this through her son. The problem is her son rebels against her dad, or his dad. So that means that, well, he gets banished. So then she shifts her attention to a different son, and the first son ends up backing the Sikhs, and it's kind of supported by him. This promotes a religious conflict between the Mughals and Sikhism. And Sikhism is sort of a Hindu mystic group. So they're kind of like the Sufis of Hindus, if that makes any sense. But this promotes this religious conflict. And then under Shah Jahan, who is the one who becomes emperor of that, basically starts assassinating all his political rivals. I mean, we have this thing of habeas corpus where it's not even legal to arrest somebody without charging with a crime. This is just, well, I don't like you, so I'm killing you. So it's president's political rivals, and generally speaking, was a very poor ruler. He really, really liked to build stuff. He spent a huge amount of money on building these wonderful things, these wonderful buildings and sculptures, and basically drove the peasants into the ground based on taxes. Meanwhile, the peasants are having a hard season under his reign. There's not a lot of money going into infrastructure and roads, basically things that people matter or care about. And that's kind of the thing is, like, if we look at the great wonders of the ancient world, the pyramids and the Great Wall, and I'm trying to think of ones that still are around, whatever. These massive feats of construction, often they came at a terrible price to people building them. I mean, they suffered, under this reign, and basically, like, the kings building them didn't care about their peasants so much. They just wanted to be remembered, wanted to be more like, these are the type of people that we would say were absolutely horrible leaders. And yet we, as we said in history, wow, what a neat thing. That was so great. It's like, yeah, but it was actually really terrible. So, a great example of this. Can somebody tell me, what is the thing that Shah Jahan is most famous for building? Yeah. The Taj Mahal. What's the last name? Sorry? The Taj Mahal. Can someone tell me, what was the Taj Mahal? Yeah.
It was to remember it was like I guess like a burial kind of place for his wife.
Yeah, same, basically.
Chapel.
So he's going for his wife because he loves her so much. Isn't that romantic? Isn't that romantic? He loves his wife so much he's going to... Well, no, that's the thing. I hear people say all the time, like, oh, that's so nice. He really loved her so much he wanted to remember for her. So he impoverished his entire nation. Thousands starved, millions starved to death, so he can remember her. How sweet. What a D-bag! Jeez. And here's the truly fascinating thing about this. All right, so here it is. I will credit where credit's due. It is an amazingly pretty building. This big, stark, white, and that's why I think about it. Why whites?
Because white is like innocence.
Yes, that's true. The thing is like pure white stands out. Like, so much so that, like, if you look around the building, nothing's white, really. It's like off-white or like tones of it. Because just bam, white is like, oh my God, it stands out. That's why they did that. It's very eye-popping, eye-catching. But yes, also this whole thing with purity and what have you. All these wonderful domes. It's called I think it's a reflection pool. Yeah. Well, again, you're showing off. If you've ever been to like Cave Hill Cemetery, things like there's some of those like tombs that are like, look at me, Yes.
Like, what's
Yeah. Well, there's a tomb in the very middle of it. I've never actually been inside. I've never been to India, but you can look at pictures of things like that. It's like cool or something like that. Yeah.
inside? Have you ever been out of the country?
Yeah.
Like, here.
Yep. It's pretty awesome place. What's that? Not to Asia, no. It's on my to-do list.
What part of Europe?
Oh, the bucket list. England, France, Germany, Belgium.
Was that all one trip?
Yeah. It's like 3 weeks. Something. It's pretty well alright. If you guys can go, I would highly recommend it. You can learn on all these different places. Not to mention, you start to see some interesting stuff about different cultures. Yeah. I mean, Europe's kind of similar to America in a lot of ways, so, I mean, when you start getting to like other places, it starts kind of changing pretty differently, but I don't know, it was not bad, I do really miss, they had a really great fast food restaurant in Belgium, and it was called Quick's, and it's a lot like a Chick-fil-A, but greasier, which sounds terrible, but it's actually really good. Yeah, it's good, dude. All right, so here's the thing. So Taj Mahal, right? And all these people suffer things like he builds it, and then he's like, and now we're going to build another one. Well, this one's going to be all black, opposite the Taj Mahal, and this is where I'm going to be buried.
It's not free.
I don't get it. Why would you want opposites, like good and bad?
Well, it's again this sort of in a lot of Eastern faiths, you have the concept of balance, of duality, positive, negative,
Like yin and
male and
yang.
female, all these different aspects. Yeah, but that's a representative of a concept that you find wider. So it's not exactly like opposite like we would think. It's not like against. It's more like along with. You can't have one without the other. If that makes sense.
So, is this still standing?
They never built it. Because what happens is his son's like, no, crazy, and arrests him and throws him in prison, where he remains until he dies. And they even found his prison cell a little mirror so he could look at the Taj Mahal. What a kind son. But anyways, his son is rigidly Islamic. Basically undoes a lot of the things we saw in Akbar. Forces huge taxes on his Indian population. As he goes to war and expands the empire, he has to spend even more on an army. This puts even more pressure on the Hindus as they start rebelling. So he has to spend more money on the army to combat that. So basically, in a nutshell, as the empire gets bigger, it gets weaker because he has to spend more money to kind of control what he has. So basically, after his reign, things pretty much start to collapse. The Mughal dynasty is going to exist for quite some time yet, but it's not really one strong king. It's really more of a figurehead of a bunch of individual Indian principalities. And what this is going to do is during the Age of Discovery, these Europeans are going to try to find ways around this really decidedly Turkish blockade of the Silk Road to get to the spice routes of China and India. And the way they're going to do that is by going around Africa. And what's going to happen is when they get to India, they're able to carve out and start conquering India because they are fragmented. So in a lot of ways, this is going to lead ultimately to the Age of Discovery and the establishment of fortresses under the Portuguese. We'll get to that in the next chapter. So long story short, what's going to happen is the Muslim world is slowly going to be starting to decline. The Europeans are going to be advancing militarily and technologically and economically. The amount of money that comes from the Spanish colonies in the New World alone is going to fuel a new age of conquest and reorganization. We're actually going to see that Spain, through the 14, 15, and 1600s, are going to emerge as the most powerful nation in the world, including this understanding that basically no place in the world isn't touched by some way by Spain, and largely it has to do with money. But we'll get to that another day. Any questions? All right, let's go over the reading that we actually did from the day before on the Safavids, and maybe see if we can get some points to you guys for that as well. All right, so I gotta remember where it is. I had you guys look up. All right, so. Let's start with that. Geographically, where was the Safavid Empire located? And I need the following people to answer first. So don't answer unless you were Conklin, Garcia, Hopkins, Hughes, Kilmeyer, Rollo, McLean, and Thompson. Persia, sure. What's the modern country there? Somebody else? Is Iran? Sure. That's so modern day Iran, which was then Persia. So the Safavids are going to be a Persian dynasty. Who was the guy to first use artillery and firearms and guns and that sort of thing? Yep. I believe it was, yes. You have last name?
I thought it was the shot or boss.
You're actually right, it is boss. It is boss. Ismail's the guy who sets it up. He actually ends up losing the Ottomans in the Janissary War. That's what battle, by the way? What was the battle that they lost, the Janissaries and the Ottomans and Salim first? You got one already. I need an answer from Conklin, Hughes, Geraldo, McLean. Yeah, what battle was it that the Safavids lost to Salim I and the Ottomans in the Janissary War? Because they were using guns. Actually, his guy, a boss later, starts adapting. The Battle of it's not Ankara. It's Battle of Chaldiran. So what? That was a boss. So why were they fighting? What was the difference of opinion there? Have you answered one yet? No. Go ahead.
Was it when he wanted to bring Christian religion in?
Not Christianity. Yeah.
Was something about
Yeah, between what two modern countries?
Wait, Iraq war.
Yes, ma'am. And your last name, please. So this was a fundamental difference of opinion about a faith, specifically Islam. The Safavids were which branch of Islam? Have you answered one?
Yes.
We don't want you to answer.
Shiite.
They were Shiites. And who were the Ottomans? Think about logically, if one's Shiite, the other's what? Geraldo Kilmeyer Hughes. Yes, ma'am. They were Sunni, yes. Last name? Sorry, Hughes? Okay. So we have a difference of theological opinion there, yeah.
Can you spell the people who use gunpowder, like,
Janissaries.
they're
They're Ottomans. Alright, guys. Look at your notes. They're already in there. Alright, I still have a few other folks need to answer questions. We'll try to get to tomorrow. So be sure to read up. Study, study, study.